Not a lot of handheld console games get ported to the PC. Now, I don't want to get into the reasons why that is, and I'd much rather leave that to be argued by you guys. The fact is, Castlevania Mirror of Fate was developed on a platform with inherent limitations. But, despite that, it managed to take the grand scale of Castlevania games and compress it into a smaller but impressive scale. It doesn't overachieve, it doesn't pretend, it plays exactly like how I would expect a handheld Castlevania game would, and even more. Developed by indie studio Mercury Steam, Mirror of Fate HD was ported to the PC 6 months after it was released on the DS. You take on the role of Gabriel Belmont, who, like everyone else who shares his last name, wants to find Dracula and kill him. Later on, you'll take control of Alucard, who is also running around the castle at the same time.
You shall not stand alone against him.
Now, the main thing that the 3 Castlevania reboots have in common that deviate from the traditional formula is that exploration has now become completely optional. Backtracking to previous areas with newly acquired skills isn't required to progress through the plot anymore, and this is completely true for Mirror of Fate and Lords of Shadow 1. Whether the optionality of exploration is better or worse is completely up to the player. On one hand, it's easier to get stuck or miss out on things if exploration is mandatory, but on the other hand, making it optional doesn't really mess up the pace of the game. Now, I fucking love Symphony of the Night. It's definitely one of my favorite games of all time. Mirror of Fate is nothing like that, but that doesn't mean it's a pile of shit. Lords of Shadow 2 aside, I think Mercury Steam is doing a hell of a great job revamping the series. Part of why I enjoyed Mirror of Fate is the level design. Platforming isn't simply jumping from platform to platform like in Symphony of the Night. The environment is highly interactive and getting around the castle feels really fluid, at least for the most part. The PC port doesn't have pressure-sensitive jumps for controllers, which can be trouble when you're hopping between gaps. Now, I know the DS is a pressure-sensitive screen, but I guess the buttons don't. Each area of the castle is pretty distinct in terms of platforming and enemies. While the enemies are different in each area, it's purely aesthetic. Their behavior feels the same throughout. Most of the enemies don't even need a strategy to be beaten. The moves are so simple that you can just button mash. In terms of progression, enemies don't get harder the farther you go, probably because their base stats don't increase as you level up, or at least they don't seem to. Leveling up only unlocks new moves, which is pretty redundant because they're all the same. Boss fights, on the other hand, are a completely different story. They're all very distinct and can be pretty challenging too. It's not so much a dodge-hit, dodge strategy. It actually makes sure you use all of your skills and the environment in the most satisfying way possible. Mirror of Fate also has a couple of level-wide puzzles, which I thought was a nice touch, even though the first one you'll encounter is hours away. The puzzle designs can be quite intricate, but not necessarily overly challenging, and because they're not really that challenging, the fact that you can buy out the solution in exchange for lesser XP reward is pretty goddamn lame. I mean, I guess it's great that you have the option of skipping out on the puzzles if you don't want to do them. Just like how you have the option to skip out on exploring if you don't want to. But I absolutely hate it when games ask you if you want your hand to be held. There is no fun in knowing that you can give up any time you want with barely any consequences. Mirror of Fate on PC features full HD graphics, and, like Lords of Shadow 1 and 2, it's got some very well done cinematics.
Look at what you become!
The cinematics are spread throughout the game and do very well with the pacing of the plot.
I've been here before.
The overall atmosphere, however, could have used more work. Symphony of the Night and Lords of Shadow 1 did this really well by having contrasting details from each level. Mirror of Fate, however, sort of just feels like you're going through the same level, but in different formats. Mirror of Fate definitely fits well within Mercury Steam's Castlevania reboots, and while I can't tell you the reason why not a lot of handheld consoles get ported to the PC, I can tell you now that Mirror of Fate's potential was only limited by its original platform.